It's a seemingly quiet night in Amsterdam when two men park their van in the southern suburb of Amstelveen and head out for drinks. Perhaps they were bored or just looking for a little fun before resuming their journey the next morning. Ordinarily, this would be harmless, except for one detail. The van they left behind was carrying 57 kilograms of amphetamines, meticulously concealed for smuggling. This single reckless decision would set off a chain of events leading to the downfall of the largest drug empire in UK history. The first crack in the operation came when an innocent Dutch lorry driver, tasked with transporting a consignment, began to suspect something was wrong. His unease compelled him to return to his depot and alert the authorities, a choice that would play a crucial role in the collapse of the entire network. Let's uncover how it all came crashing down. Paul Green, known to his gang as the Big Fella, commanded an empire of organized crime with ruthless precision. At 59 years old, he had built his criminal career on a foundation of property and business fraud. Despite having no prior convictions, his reputation for deception was well earned. Green orchestrated his operations with meticulous attention to detail, stealing a man's identity to secure a fraudulent mortgage, opening multiple bank accounts, and establishing bogus companies like Blackpool Fruit and Veg. These fake enterprises served as fronts to disguise the gang's illegal activities and channel their profits in seemingly legitimate streams. His wife played an active and integral role in the operation, laundering vast sums of illicit money through their joint accounts. Together, they funded a lifestyle that far exceeded their modest declared income with small fraudulent businesses. Their accounts revealed a taste for luxury, with extravagant spending on high-end items such as watches and jewelry. This glaring discrepancy between their reported earnings and lavish lifestyle highlighted the sheer scale of their criminal enterprise. Green sat at the top of a tightly organized 18-member network, orchestrating the smuggling of heroin, cocaine, cannabis, and amphetamines on an industrial scale. The gang transported a staggering 50 tons of drugs, enough to fill 30 family cars, concealed within shipments of garlic, ginger, and onions. This ingenious method masked the scent of the drugs, thwarting detection by sniffer dogs and law enforcement. Green's operation epitomized the intersection of ingenuity and criminality, operating with precision and evading capture for years. Green's gang expanded its influence far beyond drug importation, carving out lucrative side businesses as facilitators for other criminal organizations across the UK. By operating smuggling routes for third parties, they generated millions in fees, solidifying their status as a dominant force in organized crime. This network extended its reach across borders, involving accomplices in the Netherlands, strategic warehouse locations throughout England, and a host of sophisticated methods to evade law enforcement. At the core of their operation were encrypted phones, fake identities, and seemingly legitimate front companies. These tools allowed the gang to operate with a level of secrecy and professionalism that made them virtually untouchable. Green's network was not only strategic, but also unscrupulously, routinely compromising innocent individuals while stealing their identities. These stolen identities were then used to clone legitimate businesses, creating elaborate fronts to conceal their extensive drug operations. With every layer of deception and calculated maneuver, Green's empire thrived, operating under a veil of legitimacy while pulling the strings of an expensive, illicit network that defied detection. The gang's elaborate drug empire relied on seemingly innocent food shipments to maintain its cover. Weekly, they purchased up to 50 tons of onions, exploiting the strong odor to mask the drugs hidden within. For years, this strategy worked seamlessly, allowing them to smuggle vast quantities of illicit substances. However, the sheer volume of onions often exceeded their needs, forcing them to send excess stock back to the country of origin to uphold their facade. The deception didn't end there. Many of the returned onions, garlic, or ginger shipments were later repurposed to smuggle even more drugs into and across Europe, exemplifying the gang's cunning and resourcefulness. In 2016, however, a seemingly minor error exposed a vulnerability in their otherwise airtight operation. Two of Green's foot soldiers, one of whom was Russell Leonard, a 47-year-old fluent Dutch speaker from Kirkby, Merseyside, made a critical mistake. Leonard's role involved overseeing the packing of drugs in the Netherlands and ensuring their secure transport to the UK. On one fateful night, Leonard and his unidentified partner, whose name remains withheld, left a van loaded with 57 kilograms of amphetamines unattended in Amsterdam while they indulged in a night of drinking. This act of negligence, driven by overconfidence and complacency, marked the first visible crack in Green's meticulous constructed empire. It highlighted how even the most sophisticated and well-orchestrated criminal operations can falter through human error. This careless oversight set off a chain of events that would ultimately challenge the gang's untouchable status and bring increased scrutiny from law enforcement. The next morning, as Leonard and his partner returned to their van, ready to resume their journey, Dutch police moved in swiftly. The officers seized the vehicle, uncovering the 57 kilograms of amphetamines hidden inside, and arrested Leonard on the spot. His arrest led to a 24-year prison sentence, sending shockwaves through Green's organization. Furious at the setback, Green's anger was caught on police recordings, where he fumed, "If the van's gone or been grabbed by the police, there'll be murders." The van's interception marked the first domino to fall in the unraveling of Green's criminal empire. The Dutch authorities immediately informed the UK's National Crime Agency, NCA, setting off an international investigation. Surveillance intensified, and investigators began piecing together the scale of the operation. What they uncovered was staggering. The gang had carried out at least 240 drug shipments over 3 years. Even if only half of these shipments contained the typical quantities of drugs, the street value exceeded $3 billion. Among the gang's top clients was 53-year-old John Kinsella, a feared Merseyside mob enforcer and a key figure in the Salford-based A-Team gang. Known for his role as a violent enforcer, Kinsella was deeply entrenched in the UK's criminal underworld, with significant ties to drug trafficking and armed robbery. His connections made him a vital cog in the distribution network for Green's drugs, extending the reach of the operation across the UK. However, Kinsella's violent lifestyle caught up with him. In May 2018, he was gunned down in a gang-related assassination while walking his dogs with his pregnant partner. His death underscored the brutal reality of the criminal world Green operated within, where loyalty was fleeting and alliances often ended in bloodshed. Kinsella's demise removed a key player from the gang's network, further destabilizing Green's once thriving empire. Green's response to the escalating pressure was coldly calculated. Recognizing the vulnerability in his operations, he adapted quickly, establishing new supply routes and cloning legitimate businesses to stay ahead of law enforcement. One such ruse involved Blackpool Fruit and Veg, a seemingly harmless company that would use to rent warehouses and conceal the gang's illicit activities. Despite these efforts, the walls were closing in. The National Crime Agency, NCA, and Dutch authorities ramped up their surveillance, determined to dismantle the criminal empire. Authorities employed a multifaceted approach to expose the gang's operations. By intercepting encrypted communications, tailing shipments, and scrutinizing financial transactions, investigators pieced together the intricate network Green had built. Undercover agents infiltrated the gang's operations, uncovering storage locations and gathering key evidence. Simultaneously, customs officials and surveillance teams analyzed logistical patterns to intercept drug shipments. The collaboration between the NCA and Dutch police proved instrumental, pooling resources and expertise to tighten the noose around Green and his associates. Their coordinated strategy was a masterclass in international law enforcement. Covert surveillance, sting operations, and advanced technology enabled the tracking of suspicious shipments and infiltration of supply chains. These efforts led to the interception of 6 major shipments, resulting in the seizure of 450 kilograms of cocaine, 2 tons of cannabis, and a variety of other drugs. The total street value of these seizures exceeded $40 million, delivering a devastating blow to the gang's operations. With each seizure, the investigators inched closer to dismantle the empire. empire. The collaboration between agencies, bolstered by intelligence sharing with international partners, brought Green's operation into the light. What had once seemed like an untouchable criminal enterprise was systematically unraveled, leaving a trail of evidence that would ultimately bring the mastermind and his network to justice. The gang's encrypted communications were ultimately cracked, exposing a wealth of incriminating evidence. Paul Green, operating under the alias Duck Farmer, relied on EncroChat, a highly secure message platform favored by organized crime syndicates, to manage operations and issue directives. Initially deemed impenetrable, EncroChat was breached in an unprecedented international law enforcement effort. Messages retrieved from Green's account revealed shipment schedules, payment negotiations, and attempts to reassure accomplices following early arrest. This breakthrough allowed investigators to reconstruct the gang's operations with astonishing detail, marking a turning point in the case and paving the way for a wave of arrests. Without criminals like Paul Green, there would be no county line drug dealers, no turf wars, or countless lives lost to addiction. His arrest was a significant step toward dismantling organized crime in the UK, said Rob Jones, Director of Operations for the NCA. The investigation culminated in two of the longest trials in British legal history, stretching over 2 years. Green and his associates faced an array of charges, including conspiracy to import drugs, fraud by false representation, and money laundering. The sentences were severe. Paul Green, 32 years. Stephen Martin, financial coordinator, 28 years. Muhammad Ovice, distributor, 27 years. Russell Leonard, 24 years. Johannes Vesters and Barbara Reinbout, Dutch collaborators, 20 and 18 years, respectively. Judge Paul Lawton delivered scathing remarks during sentencing. The harm caused beyond the importation is incalculable. You distributed addiction, misery, and death across the UK, enabling violence and social degradation on an industrial scale. Between 2016 and 2018, over 1.5 million passed through Green's personal accounts. He and his wife funded a life of excess, purchasing luxury watches and jewelry while declaring only modest earnings from fraudulent cleaning and hairdressing businesses. The gang's influence was vast, spanning from Scotland to London. Their drugs fueled violence and addiction and the rise of local gangs, leaving behind devastated communities and broken lives. The relentless efforts of the NCA dismantled one of the most dangerous criminal networks in UK history. It all began with a seemingly small error, a night out in Amsterdam. Every empire, no matter how powerful, is built on fragile foundations. For Paul Green and his $7 billion operation, those foundations crumbled under the weight of arrogance and carelessness.